Thank you. Welcome across Asia Pacific to our webinar, Accelerating Migration and Resilience Across Oracle Distributed Cloud. I'm Santosh. I'm the Director for VMware and Distributed Cloud Solutions at Singapore. And I'm joined by Tanmay Dhuri, who is our OCI Lead Product Manager for Oracle Distributed Cloud. And also alongside with us, we have Mike Calonica, who is the Senior Vice President for RackWare Partnerships and Alliances. And also, we have the most technical person in this particular meeting, Akash Bambal. He's the Director for RackWare Engineering. Since 2018, Oracle and RackWare have partnered with deep OCI integrations to move and protect heterogeneous workloads across Oracle Distributed Cloud, whether it's public region, sovereign cloud, dedicated region, and hybrid, meeting residency, regulatory, and performance needs. Our goal is to accelerate migration and strengthen the resilience with consistent automation, governance, and enterprise-grade security. Today, we will cover migration patterns for any workload which our Asia Pacific customers can use, and also will be giving a live demo of a streamlined migration to the Oracle solutions or build resilience, or the DR solutions on Oracle Cloud infrastructure. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Please use the Q&A chat for any questions. We'll respond during the session and also prioritize any remaining items in the live Q&A during the end of the session. Let me quickly walk you through today's flow and what you can expect for. So today we'll be talking about why and what we are trying to cover in the next 45 minutes or so with a brief market context. And also for many of you folks who have heard Oracle databases, yes, Oracle has public cloud regions, and you would be surprised to hear a lot of solutions which we'll be discussing in the next couple of minutes. And also, the most important thing is to build the confidence and help the customers and partners with the right tooling to simplify the migration over to the cloud or the distributed cloud at the customer data center. And also, we will have a fireside chat where we'll be joined by Michael and Tanmay, where they will be providing the industry expertise and their views on where the market for cloud migration applications is heading to. And that's going to be very interesting. And last but not least, there is a great offer from RackWare for you as a customer or a partner. So stay tuned for that. Enterprise customers are making cloud decisions around security, control, and performance, not just cost. They need a low-risk path that meets data residency and low latency needs, which can help develop once, deploy anywhere across public cloud, on-premises, and the edge without any rewrites. They also expect elastic scale with simple, consistent management as data growth outpaces the networks. This is where Oracle leads. Oracle Distributed Cloud delivers a unified operating model, which is public, sovereign, dedicated, edge. And again, together with RackWare, we meet workloads where they are and move them on your terms, accelerating migration and resilience while reducing risk and complexity. Cloud migrations span databases, packaged applications, industry solutions, homegrown systems, and analytics, each with different and distinct needs. Oracle leads by pairing the world's leading database foundation with a pragmatic path to modernize and consolidate applications on Oracle Cloud infrastructure. Industry workloads get optimized, hosting and rapid deployment across public or dedicated or the edge solutions without any kind of trade-offs. The pattern is hybrid by design. With Oracle Distributed Cloud, OCI regions or dedicated region or clouded customer, which you will learn a little bit more in the next slide, it will help you in terms of creating a consistent operating model, whether it is in your data center or on the cloud. Let me show you what that unified architecture looks like. So in this particular slide, if you see, Oracle is well positioned in terms of providing you the public cloud regions in your country and across 50 plus locations across the globe. And this infrastructure has 200 over services, which could be used for your bare metal servers, Oracle Cloud VMware solution, native VMs, Kubernetes, functionless, you name it. So you have around 200 over capabilities, which you can use in any of the public cloud regions. However, there is an increasing demand from a lot of enterprise customers where they want to bring the 200 over capabilities in on-premises. That's where we have the distributed cloud solution. To start with, we have something called dedicated region, which means the same exact public cloud which is available, whether it's Mumbai, Singapore, or Melbourne, or Sydney, the same environment can be built in customer data center behind customer firewall, where customer is going to be a single tenant with all the access to 200 over capabilities. If we move a little further, we also have something called Cloud at Customer, which provides 30 over IaaS services where it is deployed in customer data center. It's a single rack solution where customer can scale from 1 to 3 racks with all the IaaS services, whether it is Kubernetes, native VMs, Oracle databases, anything of that sort. If you move further away, which is the edge offering where you have remote manufacturing sites or remote offices, we have the smallest factor, which is the 2U factor, where you can deploy the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Services at the edge. The consistent message or the solution here is you get the same experience, same tooling, same console, right from the Oracle public cloud all the way to the roving edge on your right side. So for you, it is choice, freedom, elasticity, and also for certain countries which requires sovereign or data residency needs, they can consider distributed cloud at ease of managing the expectations of any kind of government laws or regulations. So I've been talking about Oracle providing things beyond database. Again, a lot of people might not be aware, but as I mentioned, Oracle is the only hyperscaler to provide infrastructure for your data, compute, AI, and also for your next era of agentic AI. So we have the end-to-end stack, which can actually help you from the industry applications, whether it is your cloud fusion applications, which could be ERP, EPM, SEM, HCM. So these are all the SaaS applications, which is again hosted in the public cloud regions, which can be consumed, with few clicks. At the same time, you also have, 200 over capabilities for you to deploy anything to do with your traditional applications or the modern applications, which requires functionless or container kind of environment. Just to summarize the Oracle Cloud Solutions, so it's an end-to-end single vendor solution where you have all the capabilities which can actually help you in terms of building your applications and transforming your applications from traditional to modern or modern to SaaS. At the same time, the the solution which you are using in on-premises or on the cloud, it's highly portable. So we provide all the open source Terraform APIs, which can help you codify your infrastructure, or you can call it as infrastructure as a code. And at the same time, there is no hidden hypervisor cost because a lot of customers, are facing, concerns around hypervisor costs, be it from VMware or be it from other solution vendors, wherein we provide you all the solutions baked in so that you can just consume on day one without you having to install, configure, and manage it. So with that context, so let me bring in Mike. Mike, is from RackWare, and he would actually help us in terms of understanding how RackWare is helping Oracle customers move their estates, not one at a time, hundreds of workloads at a time. Over to you, Mike.
Santosh, thank you so much. I appreciate the introduction and appreciate the partnership with Oracle. First and foremost, I want to welcome everyone. Thank you for attending. We look forward to this conversation. But to that point, so a little bit more about RackWare. Well, what is RackWare? RackWare is a multi-cloud mobility and resilience platform. And here we're going to talk about how RackWare can simplify Oracle workload migration, mobility, and resiliency across distributed cloud and Oracle Cloud. Uh, we look at the migration journey really into four phases. We look at it from that initial planning phase, that execution phase, that protection phase, and then that ongoing optimization and monitoring phase. Well, what do we mean by that? So with RackWare Assess really helps organizations with cloud readiness, helps with understanding the total cost of cloud ownership, migration readiness. But when we look at it from a cloud readiness perspective, RackWare assesses whether an organization's infrastructure, applications, the posture, and generating operating model are prepared to adopt and operate effectively in Oracle Cloud. From a total cost of cloud ownership perspective, it's really looking to evaluate the full financial impact of cloud adoption, right? And really helping understand and determine that true cost as well as the ROI. And then, of course, from migration readiness, this determines how prepared workloads, teams, and processes are for a smooth and low risk transition to the cloud, including the dependencies and then architecture fit, timelines, and required remediation. And once we get through that initial planning phase, we're ready for that execution phase. And that's where RackWare migration comes in. RackWare migration is a true any-to-any migration solution. It can migrate any workload to Oracle Cloud, Oracle Distributed Cloud. When we talk about workload, it can mean physical, virtual, cloud, or even containerized workloads for that matter. And once you get through that execution phase, now you're in that protection phase. And this is where RackWare Disaster Recovery comes in. RackWare is a fully converged disaster recovery solution. It helps organizations with automated failover and fallback. And we help provide flexible RPO and RTO options depending on your business needs and SLAs. And we tend to look at that from three buckets. There's a hot option, a warm, and a cold recovery option. And then, of course, it becomes the optimization phase. And so it's always really important once you have those workloads migrated, you want to keep eyes on them, right? And you want to optimize where you can. And where RackWare optimization comes in, it helps deliver the right sizing insights. So you can monitor the CPU, the memory, the storage, the IO rates, the network usage, right? And continually validate those DR sites. And we have built-in automated health checks. Once you get through that initial cloud journey, right, there's some advantages to RackWare, especially in light of our partnership. And it really comes at the API level. So RackWare is tightly integrated with the Oracle Cloud infrastructure. And we're helping customers to ensure compliance and technical alignment. We look at this from a few different phases, right? There's 5 core categories that we look at. First is going to be shape creation, then network and storage mapping, compliance alignment, native OCI services and integrations, and automation at scale. Well, let's start with shape creation support. So RackWare helps with the automated VM shape generation, aligns to the migrated workloads within the OCI instance catalog. This helps eliminate manual sizing as well as accelerates provisioning. And ultimately, this ensures you can land on a cost-optimized, high-performance OCI infrastructure immediately. And some of the benefits here are going to be broad, right? They help reduce migration errors. They help with faster onboarding, faster deployments, and a stronger proof for OCI, especially from a price and performance advantage over other clouds. Then we move into kind of that networking and storage mapping. So RackWare intelligently maps VLANs, subnets, block storage into OCI. Simplifies one of the most complex parts of the migration, the infrastructure alignment. Reduces time to value for customers and moving critical workloads. And then within compliance alignment, right, I think this is critically important, especially depending on where that maybe critical infrastructure is, where those critical workloads live. To give some context, we support IL5, FedRAMP High, GDPR, as well as other type of compliances, but also sovereignty mandates. It enables Oracle customers to be able to pursue and be able to protect those workloads, especially if you're in government or regulated industries. And then we have native OCI services and integration. So work seamlessly with OCI IAM, monitoring and cost optimization services. And you'll be able to benefit from a single and integrated cloud operation model. And then automation at scale. So RackWare enables automated migration and DR workflows aligned to Oracle Cloud. It reduces that manual services drastically and allows you to scale delivery capacity. Moving on, more around RackWare, and we talked about this from being a true any-to-any migration and DR solution. But what do we mean by that, right? And so you'll see on this slide, we have a lot of different diagrams here, right? It's certainly busy, but I think this helps really convey how verbose RackWare is. You'll notice we can migrate any workload, protect any workload. So from any type of other cloud into Oracle Cloud, any type of private cloud or emerging cloud into Oracle Cloud, other type of hypervisors out there, as well as containerized environments, all into Oracle Cloud. Now, these are the most common ones. So if there's some that you're wondering about as you're thinking through migration projects into Oracle Distributed Cloud or Oracle Cloud, certainly feel free to ask a question. Go ahead and type that into the QA box, and our colleagues will go ahead and address that. But one thing you'll notice here on the left is we highlight operating systems. And RackWare is a file system level operating system, and that's how we migrate. So we migrate the operating system, replicate that over to the new target destination, and anything sitting on top of that operating system is what migrates. And there's a lot of advantages to that. But as we move on, I want to kind of talk a little bit around what some of the better together use cases are that we're seeing. And this kind of draws back over the past 24 months of some of the most common use cases we've seen from our customers and mutual partners. And it really breaks down into a few different categories, right? One is kind of around these VMware transitions that we're seeing into distributed cloud and Oracle Cloud. Then we see a lot of physical to virtual migrations, as well as any cloud into Oracle Cloud. And then, of course, other containers and Kubernetes to Oracle Kubernetes. Well, let's talk a little bit more around the VMware transitions we see and how that works. And RackWare enables fast, low-risk VMware transitions by automating the migration of the VMware workload to Oracle Cloud and distributed cloud environments. So that will include C3, dedicated region, Alloy, PCA, virtualization. It is an agentless replication, workload replatforming, and automated cutover. And the benefit here is it reduces the migration timeline drastically while preserving the application integrity and compliance and performance. And then we have the physical to virtual migration use cases. And so RackWare modernizes legacy physical servers, converting them into virtualized workloads on OCI or distributed cloud. And this will allow you to retire and move off of maybe legacy hardware and get into more standardized operations and accelerate the modernization without refactoring applications. So this is really great for, regulated edge or even sovereign environments. And then we have any cloud to Oracle Cloud. So RackWare supports any cloud to Oracle migrations, enabling you to move workloads from AWS or Azure or GCP or private clouds into OCI and distributed cloud for that matter. And then last is really around containers and Kubernetes. And we've seen a big rise in containers and Kubernetes environments, right? There's a lot of benefits to that. But with that, we're seeing a lot of organizations looking to move into an Oracle Kubernetes engine. And so RackWare can accelerate the container and Kubernetes migration by moving other Kubernetes or containerized workloads into OKE. And this helps enable platform standardization, improves the resiliency, and simplifies operations while supporting hybrid and distributed Kubernetes deployments across Oracle's cloud portfolio. Now, with being able to talk through some of these use cases, there might be certainly more use cases out there. And I encourage everyone, if there's use cases you're thinking about from either a migration or disaster recovery perspective that we haven't addressed, feel free to ask that in the chat box as well. But we're going to talk a little bit more around what makes RackWare so unique. And we're going to talk about our migration workflow and the importance of this and why this matters for you as you're making your move to Oracle Cloud. We break this down into 4 phases. The first phase is going to be around automation, then testing, then cutover, and then with the optional rollback. Well, let's start with talking around RackWare's policy-driven automation. So it's predefined policies, replace custom scripting and the heavy manual labor that maybe you've had experience with in the past, or other solutions for that matter. It ensures the repeatable and scalable migration process. And then ultimately, what the big benefit here is it reduces errors. It saves a significant amount of human hours, and ultimately improves customer experience moving to the cloud. From a testing and validation before cutover phase, right? This is very non-disruptive testing. This ensures workloads are OCI ready before they go live. This is a critical phase that you can test. It also helps mitigate any concerns that you have out there when you're making a migration. Testing ultimately reduces the risk of post-migration issues, and any type of costly remediation, right? And so that's why it's really important that you go through this testing phase. And then we have the seamless cutover, right? And this is going to be a cutover with minimal downtime. So with that, right, it's really important that you have as minimal downtime as possible when you're moving mission critical workloads. And RackWare enables that controlled cutover into OCI with very minimal downtime to that matter. As we go on, I want to talk a little bit more around the migration journey, but I'm going to go ahead and I want to introduce my colleague, Akash Bambal, who's going to share with you a little bit about RackWare and talk through what that migration journey looks like, as well as a little bit around architecture before we continue on into some of the other use cases for DR. So with that, Akash.
Yep. Thanks, Mike. All right. So now let's take a look at how the actual migration happens when you are using RMM for the lift and shift use cases. Now, the left-hand side here represents your current production. So these can be virtual machines running on any hypervisor on-premise, or virtual machines running on top of any cloud provider, or these can even be physical servers. What is important to us is the operating system version and the file system types on these machines. They must fit RMM's support matrix. So we have a published list of OS versions and FS types that we support. So long as your workload fits that support matrix, we can help you lift and shift that workload into any of the Oracle supported environments. The right-hand side is the destination where you want these workloads to be migrated. The blue box on the right-hand side is a Linux-based virtual machine on top of which the RMM software is running. So RMM stands for RackWare Management Module. And this is the software which allows you to address the use cases of assessment, any-to-any migration, disaster recovery and backup for Windows and Linux-based workloads, x86 architecture, infrastructure as a service. Now, we are present in Oracle Marketplace, so very easy for you to deploy the RMM instance from there and get going. Now, the RMM instance sitting on the destination side must then have L3 connectivity with the individual unique IP addresses of each of the source servers which are to be migrated. So everything happens at the guest OS level. The software does not need any access to the underlying hypervisor or the cloud provider where your source servers are running. And everything happens over SSH. So the data transfer is secured. We are making use of standard protocols, standard and tried and tested protocols out there. The configurations from firewall perspective, security perspective are pretty straightforward. Just open port 22 inbound from RMM's IP address. So with this done, and once we kick off the waves, the software will go ahead and examine the source server where it gathers the metadata information. With that done, and the right API access to the destination Oracle account, the software will make API calls to automatically create the target machines for you on the destination side. We call this as auto provisioning, and it is supported for all the environments which Oracle offers to the customers. With this instance automatically created, the software will then boot it into RackWare's microkernel, which is like an intermediate operating system. It will format it completely, creating layout same as that of the source. So your OS, boot, all local partitions on the source are recreated, and the software then starts reading the data live from your source server and writes the data to the target machine. Once all the data copy is complete, the software intelligently takes care of any driver requirements or boot reconfigurations so that the server can boot up fine on the destination hardware. With this, the server is rebooted, and now it is the exact replica of your source server, except for the drivers and the network properties. Those are retained from the destination side. At this point, the application owners can now log in and perform their validations, and we consider this as a very important step. This helps us avoid any surprises at later point in time, especially during the cutovers. With the validations done, we are then good to start the Delta Syncs. So with our patented Delta Sync technology, after the first full migration, whenever you are doing syncs, those are always Delta. The software computes the Delta changes across the file systems on the source, copies over only that Delta data to the target. We recommend that you run multiple Delta syncs till the final cutover. It helps us get an idea of the average sync times we are achieving so that we can plan the cutover downtime window accordingly, and also ensures the Delta is kept in check so that the final Delta syncs are faster. Now, during the cutover window, application owners will quiesce the applications on source. We will perform the final Delta sync using RMM. You can then make necessary network infra side of changes on the destination and start using your workloads as production from the new environment. So that's the lift and shift migration using RMM, where the software runs on the destination side, is in complete control of the customer. It runs like any Linux-based virtual machine in your own environment tenancy. The first migration as well as subsequent Delta syncs are all live. There is no downtime to your production, no reboots needed. The only downtime would be the planned cutover window because we need to get the last known boot state of source to the destination. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate the explanation on that, Akash. And real quick, to that point, want to highlight briefly here just some of the better together use cases that we have around RackWare disaster recovery for Oracle Cloud. To that point, you'll notice there's 4 common different use cases that we're seeing, and we've been seeing through our customer and partner ecosystem over the past 2 to 3 years as well. And this really breaks down probably into these 4 common themes that we see from hybrid cloud disaster recovery, multi-cloud disaster recovery, cross-region disaster recovery, and ransomware recovery. There's certainly more use cases that we support. If you have questions around some of those, please feel free to ask them. There's a lot of different scenarios out there that we can talk through, and we'll address in the Q&A as well as the Q&A at the end of the session as well. But with that, let's talk about hybrid cloud disaster recovery. And so this is where RackWare, certainly, right, you can extend the on-prem workloads into Oracle Distributed Cloud. And we support the automated agentless replication and consistent sync. And so this gains that predictable failover into, for example, C3 or dedicated regions with a lower cost, minimal disruption and policy-driven protection. And then we have the multi-cloud disaster recovery. And we look at this from another cloud into Oracle Cloud for that matter. And this helps organizations enable true multi-cloud resilience with that automated mobility, that consistent replication, and the one-click failover and fallback across any of the distributed cloud environments. And RackWare really kind of abstracts that infrastructure difference so Oracle customers can achieve cloud agnostic protection while keeping data sovereignty and operational simplicity. And that's going to be really important here when you set that up. From a cross-region disaster recovery, and this is becoming more and more popular as we see, RackWare helps provide that regional resilience, right? Using that fast incremental sync and policy-based failover across Oracle regions and distributed cloud sites. So this ensures business continuity during outages, disasters, or whatever may happen, or even capacity constraints without any type of that application refactoring. And then from really that ransomware recovery, right? I think this is very common, and we see this becomes, an industry term, been out there for quite some time. RackWare provides that fast point-in-time rollback to a clean pre-attack state. And Oracle can add that sovereign control and optional mutability, right, required for that regulated environment. And together, we're delivering that rapid ransomware recovery with compliant and cloud-native protection across distributed cloud and Oracle Cloud for that matter. And so again, some of the most common use cases we're seeing. And to that, we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit around the architecture before we go into the live demo for everyone. So Akash, I'll pass back to you here and you can talk a little bit more around the architecture for the group before we go into the demo session.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike. So let's take a look at the high-level architecture when we are using RMM for any and all of the use cases that the software supports. I'll keep the focus on disaster recovery here. We touch based on how the migration works, the lift and shift migration works in the earlier slide. Now, again, you would find the deployment architecture to resemble to what we do for migration. So the left-hand side is your production, current primary. It can be any hypervisor on premise, any cloud provider, or even physical servers. Right-hand side is the destination, basically the Oracle environment where you want to configure disaster recovery now. The green box on the right-hand side is, again, RMM running on top of a Linux-based virtual machine. So the deployment of RMM, the prereqs, as well as the workflows, they remain more or less similar to what you would do for a migration setup. And that is where, from a user perspective, it is very, very convenient for you or very intuitive for you to really configure disaster recovery after you have achieved migration. The only difference is the block storage, which is mounted on top of the RMM virtual machine on the DR side. It is not needed for a lift and shift migration, but required for DR and backup use cases. Because for DR and backup, the software makes use of store and forward mechanism. So again, the software will talk to your source server, read the data live, but instead of writing it directly to the target machine, this time the software will write it to the image which is created on top of the block storage, which is attached to the RMM virtual machine on the DR side. So for every source server that the software is protecting, there is a corresponding image that gets created, and the data copy first happens from your primary to the image on the RM. And this image is our source of truth whenever there is a disaster situation. Then the data is copied from the image on the RMM to the DR compute machines. And Mike alluded to the three options that we provide as part of DR setup. So on the destination side, you can choose what type of DR deployment you want, whether you want to go for hot DR, warm DR, or cold DR. These three options are available to you, and these also help you manage your budget constraints along with the RTOs that you want to achieve. Now, as part of the failover, the software ensures the data on your DR compute machines is the same as we have in the image captured on the RMM. Make sure it is booted, accessible, and runs any post scripts you may have hooked into the sync process. When you want to do a fallback, the same architecture applies, and that's the simplicity of the design. You don't need to modify anything in this architecture. RMM still sits in the DR side. Just need to ensure RMM can still connect to the source and target servers over their IP addresses. When you click the fallback button on RMM's GUI, the software reverses the direction of sync. It will now sync the data from DR compute machines to the storage and from storage back to the primary. And we support doing fallback to restored as well as rebuilt primary. So that's a huge advantage. If you lost your primary altogether, the software can still help you achieve fallback in such a situation. So that's how easy it is for you to perform the complex failover fallback operations, ensuring you have got business continuity. And on top of it, by virtue of the design that we have, the software is a natural fit for environments which require data sovereignty or which require air-gapped deployments. Because the RMM, along with the block storage that is attached to the RMM, sits in customer's own account tenancy on Oracle. It is not a SaaS-based model. No data goes out. Nobody outside has access to your data or to the RMM instance. So that makes the deployment extremely secure. All right. So with this done now, let's jump on to a live demo where we will see things in action. All right. So here, as part of this quick demo, I'm going to show you migrating a workload which is currently running on-premise on VMware into Oracle account. Now, this is my OCI account running in US East Ashburn region. I've got my compartment demo02DR. And as we looked at in the architecture, RMM sits on the destination side. So that's how I've deployed my RMM instance here. And it has been deployed using the marketplace image itself. So very easy for you to deploy it. And once you do that, it is running like any other Linux-based virtual machine in my own account tenancy. I've got complete control over the RMM instance. Now, I don't have a private connectivity between my lab and OCI. So I'm going to make use of public IPs, but for actual deployments, you don't need to have any public interface on the RMM. Everything can just happen over the private network. So it's completely secure from that perspective. Now, once you have deployed RMM, it is accessible over SSH because it's a Linux machine on its IP address, and the graphical user interface is also accessible on the same IP address. So if I key in the IP address here, this is where you will be able to, log in the graphical user interface, and this is the landing page from where you create a wave. Now, a wave in terms of RMM is a way for you to group together the workloads. You can either create wave by adding the details one by one. A easier way is you simply download a template, fill in all the details of the workload that you want to migrate or protect, and simply drag and drop that template onto the UI. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I have this template built in, and I'm going to just do a drag and drop of it onto the RMS UI. Second here. So load it from here then. All right. So with this done, RMM will create a wave out of it with all the details that we have provided in the template. So in here, we will see the details of my source machine. So this is the IP address of my source server, which is running, in VMware in my lab, on VMware in my lab. And then once we have provided these details, we also need to let RMM know about the API access to my OCI account so that it can automatically create the target machines for me. So for that, I need to add a cloud user, basically a IAM user with the required API privileges. I've already added that. And then you need to provide certain details like availability domain, VCN, compartment, subnet. And this all comes from your OCI account on the destination side. So let me quickly copy the availability domain from here. That's one of the required inputs. And then we provide the VCN compartment and subnet where you want the instance to be provisioned. Now you can provide it either by name or by IDs. That's absolutely fine. I'm just using the names from my account. Now with this done, the software has got access to make API calls and provision the instance for us. Once we have done all the configuration, taken care of prereqs, hit the play button. The software will now talk to our source machine, examine it. So as part of examine, it is collecting the metadata information so that it has the details to create an instance on OCI. So with examine done, the software moves on to auto provisioning, and now it is creating an instance named Lin on-prem DR in OCI. So if I now go in here, let's go back to our instances. Let's refresh it. So you can now see Lin on-prem DR being provisioned based on the inputs that we have provided. The shape is matching to what we have on the source. And again, you can provide all of these details as input if you want. If you want to choose a shape of your choice and things like these. So once this instance is provisioned, the software will overwrite the data to it completely. And then once everything is done, you will be able to SSH and you will find this to be the same as what you have on the source. So it's a like-to-like application. Now, while this is in progress, let me also show how you can configure the disaster recovery policies. So under DR policies, you can create DR frequencies or basically the periodicity with which you would want to perform the delta syncs, right? So RMM syncs are asynchronous. The configuration, the periodicity that you specify here is what will drive the intervals for the delta syncs and eventually your RPOs and RTOs. So you can do it by schedule, daily at specific time of the day or weekly. You can do it by frequency in terms of minutes or hours. You can also have exclusion windows to avoid syncing during specific time of the day. You can configure notification emails. So the email IDs you enter here will be notified in case of failure or when the syncs finish. With this done, you can then associate this DR policy with your wave, and it will then allow you to perform failover and fallback by a simple click of a button on RMM's GUI. So once you apply the DR policy here, the failover button will be activated. So whenever you want to do the failover, you simply click this failover button. The software will ensure the data on your DR compute machine is what we have in the captured image. Once the failover is successful, the fallback button gets activated. You click this fallback button, and the software copies the data from your DR side back to your production, ensuring you can resume your operations from the original production again. So that's how easy it is for you to configure things on the RMM's GUI and achieve complex any-to-any migration, DR, and backup use cases. And again, all the information about the operations is visible to you on the UI under the history tab. The diagnostics are available as well. So very easy for you to get hold of the product. All right, so that's a quick overview of how the graphical user interface looks like. I'm sure this must have given you a good view of how things are, how easy it is for you to get started. So with this done, I'll now hand it over back to you, Mike.
Fantastic. Thank you, Akash. To that point, right? And I think this is going to be certainly just something we want to cover off on a little bit about what we saw, what we learned. And I think this breaks down, we're talking about why RackWare for Oracle Distributed Cloud. And there's really kind of 5 themes here that we want to be able to talk through and share. And so to that point, the 3 themes that we're seeing are going to be around any-to-any flexibility, no agents or refactoring, automated failover and fallback, as well as compliance-ready protection, and then ransomware recovery. When we think about this, again, just as a recap, so any-to-any flexibility, RackWare seamlessly migrates any workload from any source, right? Whether it's VMware, Hyper-V, KVM, bare metal, or cloud into Oracle Cloud, right? Or C3 or dedicated region or Alloy without refactoring or lock-in. From no agents, no friction, it makes it very simplified. So that means there's going to be no production disruption, simplified change control, and faster security and compliance approvals. And then with the automated failover and fallback, it's policy-driven replication, automated failover. It's non-disruptive testing that delivers that predictable recovery without any type of manual intervention needed. And then from a compliance-ready protection standpoint, right, it's encrypted replication, policy-based retention, and auditable DR workflows to meet that regulatory, data residency, and sovereignty requirements that you may have. And then, of course, from the ransomware recovery standpoint, right, a little bit around how RackWare enables that restoration from a clean data perspective while minimizing that business impact. And so what are some of the outcomes that you can anticipate? Well, with RackWare, you can reduce migration timelines by 50 to 70% and enable that faster modernization as well as onboarding. We're also going to be able to help reduce your total migration project costs by 50%. And that's really due to the automation that we have built in. You can recover in minutes with the automated failover and fallback based off of custom RPO RTOs that you set that meet your requirements, either from a business SLA standpoint or from a specific performance standpoint. And then, of course, RackWare, it's that encrypted replication, right? It's that policy-based retention, the auditable workflows that we talked about for that sovereign and isolated DR use cases. And ultimately, it can reduce the infrastructure and operational overhead by 30 to 60% versus legacy DR solutions. Now, I'm excited to pass and reintroduce Santosh as we kind of lead the discussion into our fireside chat. So with that said, Santosh, certainly like to pass it back to you if we can, and we can lead the fireside chat discussion.
Thanks, Michael and Akash. That was really a great walkthrough of what RackWare can do in practice. To build on that, this fireside chat is where we zoom out a bit and talk strategy, how customers are really thinking about VMware estates, Oracle Distributed Cloud, and the realities of executing small, medium, and large scale migrations. I'll be moderating this discussion with Tanmay, who is our OCI product management leader for Distributed Cloud, and Michael, of course, as you already know, from RackWare. And they will help us in terms of unpacking what they are seeing on the ground and the concrete moves they recommend for the next 6 to 12 months. Tanmay, a quick question for you. From your vantage point, leading Oracle Cloud, Edge, and Distributed Cloud from a product management leadership perspective, what macro trends are you seeing in how enterprises are rethinking where their workloads will run over the next 2 to 3 years?
Thank you, Santosh. And firstly, hello, everyone. And thank you, Michael, as well, for this great session. So, to answer your question, Santosh, right, I look at the whole enterprise world in kind of two distinct domains, right? There is a significant portion of the market or enterprises who are ready to move to the cloud or have already moved to the cloud, right? But the rest of the portion actually is kind of trying to figure out what to do next, right? They are governed by data residency, latency, as well as sovereignty requirements, right? Wherein governments are nowadays enforcing them to host data locally, to exactly know where the data is stored and processed. And that is what is becoming a key decision-making factor for these customers to decide what to do next. OCI in general, as we saw, right, has positioned itself well to cater to this broad spectrum of customer bases, right? For customers who are ready to move to the cloud, are ready to move, are already kind of wanting to scale to that level, we also always have the Oracle public cloud infrastructure, right? But for customers who are wanting to stay on premises, wanting to have more control, but still want to kind of gain their experience or start building expertise with respect to OCI, we offer our portfolio, right? The OCI Edge Cloud portfolio with the compute cloud at customer, private cloud appliance, and the roving edge device as well. So I see a lot of interest nowadays with also the advent of AI to think about sovereignty requirements, deploying AI workloads on-prem as well. And I believe this trend is about going to continue for a significant amount of time until people figure out what's the right choice for their sort of deployment.
That's a very interesting insight, Tanmay. Definitely, I would want to come back to you and double click on some of your insights again. But let me go back to Michael. Michael, from the RackWare partner and alliances side, I'm pretty sure you've been on this journey for long, right? So what are you hearing most from customers and partners about their biggest blockers to moving critical workloads to Oracle Cloud or even the distributed cloud in their data center?
Santosh, first and foremost, thank you for the opportunity to address this. It's a great question, right? And over the past 3 years, there's certainly common themes that come to light. In general, I think it comes down to risk and cost. And what I mean by that is best probably exemplified maybe by, 5 or 6 or so common points that I typically see out there. And first, I think the biggest one that we see is risk of downtime. So a lot of organizations, they have fear of outages during migration, and the perceived lack of a safe rollback option. In the event of something happening, how do we get back to our previous state? Next is data integrity and security. So I think there's general concerns about data loss, corruption, obviously ransomware exposure during a transition. Then we see it from the regulatory and data sovereignty perspective as well, right? So making sure you can adhere to compliance, locality, the audit requirements that limit where workloads can run. And then there's that application complexity, right? So when you think about legacy apps, there's unknown dependencies and high refactor risk. That is certainly a common theme that we hear from many customers and partners. And then we get more into cost predictability, right? And I think there's sometimes uncertainty around what those cloud costs are, right? Maybe if there's any type of additional fees or long-term economics. And then you start getting into post-migration, right? And you start thinking about disaster recovery, right? And the confidence. Is there a proven and testable DR solution in the cloud or across other clouds for that matter to support whatever use case they have, whether it's cross-region, multi-cloud, or you name it. And then, of course, I think the last one is there's skills and operational readiness, right? And sometimes there's gaps in cloud expertise and concerns over day two type of operations for that matter. And so I think these are some of the most common themes we see out there. And I think one of the interesting things is, and one of the great things is with RackWare, we can remove these concerns, right? It's due to our architecture. It's due to the automation we have built in. So that way you can have the automated migration. We have the ability to provide that seamless cutover, right? And we have that fail-safe option with the optional rollback. Um, and we've been successful in performing tens of thousands of customer migrations. And so, with that experience, I think there's a lot of ability for us to make sure customers get to their new cloud safe and secure, and with ease. So, great question.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the interesting point, which I could capture here is RackWare is not a point solution, which, you clearly mentioned that you're helping the customer or the partner to improve the confidence and reduce the risk for migration. And the journey doesn't stop there. The journey
Right.
continues to, optimize, build resilience, build, ransomware protection. That's really good. Of course, I'll come back to you. Let me, quickly go back to Tanmay. Tanmay, from your point of view, since you develop, design the products, which is at least 3 years, 4 years from now. So let me understand from you, how does Oracle Distributed Cloud, whether it is edge, sovereign, customer data center deployments, change the conversations with customers who historically hesitated to move beyond databases into full stack workloads on the cloud or on premises?
That's a great question, right? And that is kind of aligns well with what we see in our traditional customer base too, right? Now, first, I'd like to talk about Oracle or OCI's another product, which is Oracle Exadata, right? Which is the premier system to run your database workloads on. And that is where most of our customer base was originally concentrated, right? Which they used to run their databases on the Exadata, but they didn't have many options to kind of keep on running their applications or middleware tiers, right? Now, with the compute cloud at customer, which is our rack scale footprint, we have kind of given them an option to have a singular business model for both their database and application and middleware tier workloads, and with unique feature sets that C3 offers, right? For example, the Exadata Direct Connect. We are now seeing almost more than 50% of our customer base being this combination customer of having their database running on Exadata and their apps and middleware running on the compute cloud at customer or private cloud appliance, right? So that's an interesting insight, and that's, I think, what we will see more and more customers benefit from in the future, because with the GPU support on C3s as well, customers can use this trio of solutions, right? Having their compute and GPU layer on the compute cloud at customer and the database layer on the Exadata to kind of drive far more sovereign AI deployments as well on premises.
This is really awesome, because I mean, gone are those days where customer can only, buy products, build services, and then consume. But here, I think you as a product management leader are envisioning products. Not only envisioning, I mean, you have a product where customers and partners are using it more from a cloud consumption in their data center with their terms. That's really great. So
Mhm.
let me understand from Michael, right? Where does RackWare fit into this strategy in a differentiated way?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when you think about it from a differentiation perspective, I think there's probably a few ways to look at this. And so one, RackWare is a true any-to-any migration and DR backup solution, right? With those capabilities and being agnostic of the source environment or application running on source, make it very easy for customers to achieve complex migrations between disparate environments. And we make it easy to migrate with ease and in a fast-paced manner. So I think that's probably going to be the one most common one is our true any-to-any migration capability and DR capabilities.
I think that was an easy question for Mike. So let me ask you some of the tough ones. So Mike, what are the specific migration or DR gaps you and your team have designed in your platform to close? Because I'm pretty sure Oracle being a Gen 2 cloud, which has some of the leading capabilities which none of the other hyperscalers have, but what is that you and your team have developed to close those gaps for Oracle customers?
Great question. So customers can make use of Oracle native mechanisms, right? To handle the Oracle databases while running RackWare Management Module, right? Takes care of all the non-databases, so WinLin workloads for them. Customers, they don't need to worry about using different solutions based on their application or source environments. And so RackWare ensures organizations running their workloads on any source environment can easily set up DR in Oracle and give them the flexibility to choose from a variety of different type of DR deployments, meeting that required SLA. And then, of course, you have seamless migrations and failover and fallback in a true any-to-any manner. So rapid cutovers, no minimal app reconfigs on targets.
Awesome. Let me ask you a very candid question, because
Yeah.
again, me as a customer or a partner, right? This is something, which I'm always worried about, because migrations are, it's just not about complexity, it's also about our jobs being online as well, right? If you think about a CIO who still sees cloud migration as high risk and high effort, what are the top misconceptions you would want to clear up in the first 5 minutes of a conversation?
Good question. There's no need to worry about changes in storage types, drivers, network configs, app redeployments, longer cutover times, or not having an option to roll back after using workloads in target environment for some extended time. So requiring different prereqs and configs tied to the app and servers being migrated. So I think that's probably the biggest one.
That's awesome. I'm sure, you will be sharing some of the experiences with your, successful customers, migrations with partners. So I'll come back to you. So let me quickly go back to Tanmay. Tanmay, when you talk to customers running large VMware or legacy enterprise application estates, what do they worry about most when considering Oracle Cloud? Is it performance, licensing, skills, or something else?
Well, Santosh, if we take a step back and look at the VMware estate as well, right? It's more to do with a habit forming exercise. VMware's presence globally and the existence for so long has made people so comfortable with that whole deployment environment that they were hesitant to change in the first place, right? However, when Broadcom changed the licensing policy for VMware, that became like an influx point for IT enterprises, the leadership, to consider potential options instead of getting locked into a singular deployment mode, right? That was kind of the trigger for them to consider other deployments. And that's where we saw a barrage of questions coming in from how they can eventually migrate to KVMware's hypervisor that OCI offers, or if they could continue using VMware just on a different platform, right? And that's where OCI again positioned itself well for customers who wanted to kind of migrate to a cloud-based VMware platform. We obviously supported OCVS, but for customers wanting to re-platform as well, right? With the help of RackWare, we were able to kind of migrate a lot of existing VMware customers to the private cloud appliance and compute cloud customers, drive more training exercises for them, and also be able to kind of justify the feature parity to some extent through business use cases, customer references, as well as showing them workloads are valid and tested on both kind of deployment environments. So it's a long journey, right? Because it's just something that has kickstarted in the last couple of years. But I believe for the next at least 5 years is when this whole process will continue to go on. And it's just that we'll keep continue supporting customers in their journey and the best preference or choice they make.
Absolutely. I agree with your thought process, because 70% of the workloads are still in on-premises and majority of the workloads are still VMware estates. Again, back to Michael. Michael, you are having a Switzerland solution, which is like you're sitting in center of physical, virtual, VMware, non-VMware applications or containers, right? Can you walk us through a typical VMware to Oracle journey with RackWare? Like what the phases look like from the first discovery through cutover, and where customers usually see the biggest aha moment?
Yeah, great question. Actually, it's my favorite question. So, with RackWare, right, the migration process, it's pretty straightforward and something we have developed and made solid over the years, right, of experience in the field and dealing with complex environments. The assessment phase helps build good understanding of the workloads to be migrated, right? Those dependencies, the right sizing requirements. Is then, the first full migration ensures servers are stood up in the destination and give app owners a chance to validate them. And then, of course, the subsequent delta syncs ensure changes on source are copied to the target, right? Only the delta data, but finally you get to that cutover window. And the cutover window involves putting source servers in quiescent mode, right? And performing delta syncs with any changes needed on networking infrastructure side. So the software also allows for that rollback if there are any issues during a post cutover and needing to retake that cutover. So
On that note, let me ask you, like, you know, a tougher question. Do you have an example where a customer moved dozens or hundreds of workloads and surprised themselves with either the speed or the reduced risk of the process?
great question. In fact, we have, right? We get this all the time, and we love this question and we love this use case. So recently, we did about a 25,000 server migration project within 6 months. So the customer was cautious, right? And they actually had reserved about a 3-year timeline to achieve this. And we did it in 6 months for them. So this is a massive pace and success, right? The software really helps achieve this for the complex deployments, large scale deployments, and it's a testament to the automation built into RackWare. So, when our customers come in with an estimated timeline and we can reduce that, and we say we can reduce timelines by 70%, we mean it. So 25,000 servers in 6 months, I think we help the customer drastically. And so it's a fantastic question, but it's the power of RackWare automation.
That's really awesome. So before we end this session, I want to take some final thoughts and some of the view, right? So Tanmay, for customers, if you were advising an executive who wants to make visible progress on Oracle Cloud in the next 6 to 12 months, what are the first 2 or 3 decisions they should make coming out of this session?
That's a great future-looking question, Santosh. And the first few decisions, I'd want to bucket them as somebody who has not used OCI versus someone who has. Let's say somebody who is completely new to OCI. I suggest you get your free OCI tenancy, start exploring OCI services that we have to offer, and just familiarize yourself with the environment. Let's say if you're a traditional on-prem deployment option, you can always reach out to Santosh and myself as well to discuss more about what offerings can we support based on your workload requirements. Let's say you are a rack scale deployment or a server scale deployment, we always have options to talk about that as well. Or if you are a VMware house, we can also talk about OCVS too with you. So that would be the initial plan of actions for all potential customers who are looking at options to move off of VMware or move to OCI. If you are interested to learn more about our product lines, we will share all our resources in the chat and later in the webinar as well. And you also have RackWare, right? A partner here. We have co-published blogs with RackWare. We have RackWare RMM listed on the marketplace, supported on Compute Cloud Customer and Roving Edge. So you can leverage their knowledge base as well. They have more expertise in moving you from X to Y. So define your X and your Y, and they'll help you get there.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Tanmay, for all the guidance. And again, I'm pretty sure you listen a lot to the customers, and that's why we have the best products in the market where we are quite differentiated. So let me ask this question to Michael in a different way. For customers and partners listening today, what is that one action you would like them to take in the next 30 days to move their Oracle workloads or non-Oracle workloads to the Oracle Cloud?
Great question. So I'll be pretty straightforward, right? It's the first thing is identify a few servers. Try migrations to Oracle using RackWare RMM. And that will set the path for proceeding with the remainder of the workloads. And so you can actually get that access readily available either from the marketplace or from our website, right? And it's that easy, and we'll show you through. So great question.
That's awesome. I think I know you have an offer for the customers and partners in the session, so I will let you talk about that.
Fantastic. Well, Santosh, one, thank you for hosting the fireside chat. Thank you to my peer as well, Tanmay, for participating with myself. We really appreciate everyone who has attended. To that point, where to start? What's next? And so as part of this, I think there's a couple items here that we want to show to the customers and partners who are attending today. There's a couple actions you can take. You'll notice we have a big QR code on the right. Feel free to pull out your mobile phone, scan that. You'll have access to these forms to complete. The first one is really the migration accelerator. So today you can download RackWare free assessment to understand your environment and TCO of your journey. In addition, you can migrate 2 workloads for free with RackWare, right? We'll help you set up those provisionings. So if we want to set up a Linux or a Windows server, we certainly can. And then we have the DR readiness workshop. So scheduled DR strategy session with our subject matter experts. And then, of course, we recently announced this. We want to make this offer to everyone here today is request your free DR offer, right? We're going to offer 100 days up to 100 workloads for free to you today. So by scanning the QR code, you'll be able to fill out that form and you'll get your free software license for 100 days up to 100 workloads. And then the last item, right? It's always about always be learning. We host a regular RackWare Academy. We host a monthly session. So you can attend our next session coming up in January. You'll notice we always have at least 2 sessions hosted on our website. So feel free to sign up for that and attend our next session on RackWare and learn more about RMM. And I think with that, Santosh, I think we can go ahead and move into the live Q&A. So I think if there's any questions left in the Q&A box that have yet to be addressed, I think maybe we can read those out, and then my colleague Akash, if they're RackWare oriented, will help address them. And if they're Oracle related, I'm sure Tanmay or you, Santosh, can address them as well.
I think there were some really great questions, around 15 plus questions in the Q&A. But I want to pick one question because in the interest of everyone's knowledge. So there was a good question about, is there full documentation, labs, demos that we can use it, right? So do you have any kind of a sandbox environment which customers can get started?
Great question. So we do have documentation. So there's a couple aspects to getting our documentation. One, recommend signing up for a RackWare trial, but also you'll notice there is a support portal that we have. So if you create a support portal account, we provide all of our customer and partner documentation in there, from quick start guides, anything related. Alternatively, you can reach out to RackWare, go to our website, rackware.com. And click a contact us button, let us know what specific content you're looking for, and we'll send it to you via email as well. From a sandbox environment, we don't have a sandbox environment hosted on our site today, but with that said, right, RackWare is readily available in the OCI marketplace. So you can either download RackWare as a paid listing, or you can choose the BYOL option. You can also get licensing directly from RackWare today. If you go to our website, you'll notice we have our free assessment solution. So you can request RackWare free assessment. You can test migrating workloads with RackWare migration. And then with disaster recovery, we'll provide you a RackWare disaster recovery trial license as well. But also don't forget, we are offering the 100 days, 100 workloads for RackWare DR as well. So
Perfect. And I think one of the frequently asked question is also about there are tons of other migration solutions which promises high but delivers less without rollback plans. But one of the frequently FAQ question is this agentless, or does it require some agents to be installed within OS or application or database?
great question.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Akash.
Go ahead, Mike. Okay, so with regards to the sync technology, our technology being file system based, by default the sync engine is agentless. So you don't need to really worry about installing anything on the source. It's non-intrusive. Your source servers keep on running, so those are live, and when we are syncing the data as well. We also have an agent-based replication mechanism, which we call as the advanced sync engine. And it significantly improves the sync times from source to the destination side. And we use it for specific use cases, maybe when the RPOs are stringent. So it's a choice, but the default is agentless.
Awesome. One last question before we wrap up. Michael, so from your experience, are you seeing a lot of customers uh, surprised, shocked with the other hyperscalers bill and they want to move to Oracle Cloud in their data center or public cloud? Does RackWare support, cloud to cloud migration?
We do. It's a great question. It is actually one of our most common use cases we see. We see a lot of customers looking to move from other clouds into Oracle Cloud. I think some of the most recent ones we see and most common ones are coming from AWS and Azure into Oracle Cloud. And, what we always tell them is, and what's always obvious in the initial feedback is the performance of OCI. The performance is unmatched. And then obviously, I think there's also another aspect is it's very cost effective. And so when you get better performance and it's more cost effective, it's a win-win. But yeah, great question. We see it a lot. And those are the two most common ones we see moving into Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. And we support that use case.
Awesome. That's really great to know. And I will let you wrap up the session. But thank you, Tanmay, Akash, and Michael for all your expert views. And I mean, there are a lot of customers and partners who want to get in touch after the session.
Yeah. Again, Santosh, thank you. Thank you, Tanmay, as well, for co-hosting with us today. This is a fantastic session. I want to thank everyone for who attended today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us directly. Visit our website at rackwareinc.com. Right, you'll notice we have a lot of content on our website. We have our resource center. We have our RackWare Academy session. If you have a general question, you can fill out a contact us form. Just let us know what your questions may be. In addition, at the conclusion of this session, we'll be writing out an email and we'll send links to the recorded session. And if anything else comes up, feel free to let us know. And until then, thank you all for joining, and we look forward to seeing you in our next session. So have a good rest of the morning, and see you soon.